Hi, my name is Steve Carroll. I am a student at Frostburg State University. This is my capstone class, and I am presenting my service learning project, presenting the history issue and nursing intervention for the rise of concussions among youth athletes. My first slide, I'm going to give a little medical background on concussions. We're going to talk some medical terminology. Concussions is a traumatic brain injury. It's a significant injury and can't be taken lightly. It's a type of traumatic brain injury that's caused by a blow to the head of the body, possibly a fall. What it does is it jars and shakes the brain inside your skull. Concussions can be hard to diagnose because there may not be any outward signs of a concussion. You don't have to pass out or lose consciousness, although some people will have obvious symptoms of a concussion. The brain is a soft organ that is surrounded by spinal fluid. Normally, the fluid around your brain acts like a cushion to keep your brain from banging into your skull. However, if your body or head is hit hard enough, your brain will actually accelerate, decelerate, and brain will strike the skull. It does cause temporary neural dysfunction, can be broken into several groups, impacts thinking and remembering. You may not be able to concentrate. You may not be able to remember new information for a period of time. Physically, you will feel nauseous, possibly vomit. You'll have a headache with blurry vision, sensitivity to light or noise. Now, emotionally, you can also be impaired for days to months. A person who suffers from a concussion may have post-concussion syndrome, in which they're easily upset, sad, nervous or anxious, or more emotional for months at a time. Sleep is also impaired. Someone suffering from concussion will sleep more than normal, also feel restless during the day, have a hard time feeling asleep, and after waking up will feel that the sleep did not give them a full rest. Now, why has concussions been in the news recently, or why is it getting more awareness? Well, the catalyst behind the medical industry looking more into concussions really has to do with the National Football League. In 2014, close to 5,000 former NFL players filed a class action lawsuit against the NFL, stating that they did little or ignored traumatic brain injury among players. Many players, former players, suffer from post-concussion syndrome, dementia, debilitating motor disorders, in which it is irreconcilable. Many medical professionals believe that the repeated head trauma throughout the years, gone unnoticed, undiagnosed, or ignored, has caused these former NFL athletes to suffer debilitating brain injury that they will never recover from. With regards to youth athletes, and we're talking children as young as 6 or 7 years old up until high school, we are seeing 400,000 concussions yearly, which is a major increase, and we'll get into those stats later. Just in 2009, there were 120 sports-related deaths among young athletes, some of them directly caused by traumatic brain injury or spinal problems. Now, with regards to concussion research, and particularly youth athletes, we are at such an early stage that the research is not fully available yet. The impact on our young athletes, student athletes, is just being studied. Proper treatment, prevention, and awareness is still in its infancy stages. Just discussing the rise in youth sports head injuries, post-concussion syndrome is increasing. School nurses, teachers, and medical professionals are seeing this complex disorders, which has various symptoms. A student athlete will suffer from headaches, dizziness, poor concentration in school, inability to remember information, forgetfulness, sleepiness during class, and sensitivity to light. These symptoms, school officials are seeing lasting for weeks, months, and up to a year. Some medical professionals have recommended a recovery period after a concussion of 6 months to 1 year before entering back into contact sports. ER visits, are we seeing an increase? We're seeing young athletes with an increase of 200% ER visits over 10 years. Let's talk about the reasons for this increase in youth athlete concussions. So, several reasons, several studies, and several kind of opinions on the matter. For one, there is just an increase in sports activities among youths. Um, for most of us, when we were young, I think we had a choice of maybe basketball, baseball. Some folks played little league football. However, now youth athletes are entering hockey, lacrosse, and other high-risk contact sports. There's also an increase in competitiveness among youth sports. Some lacrosse leagues, some football leagues are encouraging travel time and 3 to 4 day a week practices for athletes as young as 8 years old. We also have an increased intensity in play. High school athletes, for example, often have the saying, toughen up, no pain, no gain. Breaks are delayed, and there's also a culture among contact sports to be tough and not show if you're in pain. That can cause a youth athlete who has perhaps hit his or her head, and will not go to the coach and talk about it for fear that they'll be ridiculed. However, some studies just say that there's actually an increase in awareness in reporting head injury, and medical professionals are now looking for head injury and grading concussions more regularly than they would have in the past. As far as nursing, medical professionals, and coaches, family members, mothers and fathers, intervening means that you must know the signs and symptoms of concussions. If you suspect that a young athlete has suffered head injury, you need to look for symptoms of a possible concussion. Of course, you have the brief loss of consciousness after an injury. If an athlete loses consciousness after a blow to the head, you are automatically assuming concussion, and a medical professional is sought immediately. However, if a young athlete does not suffer loss of consciousness, we're looking for dizziness, lightheadedness, confusion, and particularly short-term memory lapse in which they can't remember what day it is, what time it is, or they don't remember the game they were playing. Nausea or vomiting is seriously concerning, and they will also have sensitivity to light. It's also important to remember that an athlete may have a significant blow to the head, but will have a period of lucidity for hours or even days. Symptoms of the concussion may not develop until several days later. If there is any doubt, you seek a medical opinion to do a grade scale immediately. There are also other interventions that hospitals can perform, such as x-rays, MRIs, and neurological testing to rule out concussions. Our nursing diagnosis interventions is a risk for neurocognitive post-trauma syndrome as evidenced by decreased concentration, memory lapse, and decreased motor coordination. Intervention includes early detection and identification of possible head injury with grading scale, appropriate time in recovery before the youth is reintegrated into contact sports, as to avoid long-term damage from continuous head trauma. Key outcomes we're looking for our youth athletes. The athlete is going to maintain a stable neurological state. They're going to recover from all neurodeficits. Proper rest of recovery, like we had said earlier, possibly 6 months to a year. Also, the athletes and family members are going to identify signs and symptoms of a concussion, as well as the risk factors for head injury. Thank you for listening to my service learning project. I hope it was informative. Any questions? Please contact me.